Welcome everybody to Blue and Red Football Channel, where we bring you all the latest about Chelsea and Liverpool, respectively, our clubs. It's an exciting time for both of our clubs at the moment. We have both played our first preseason matches. Liverpool's was yesterday, Chelsea's was on Wednesday. Because yours was more recent, maybe we get into Liverpool first. Let's hear what you thought about Arne Slot's first 90 minutes as Liverpool head coach.
Well, we played Real Betis, Spanish club, managed by Manuel Pellegrini, and we came out with a 4-3-3 as expected. However, the formation kind of changed throughout the game. We saw a lot of different things that we've seen rather under the Klopp. Like, for starters, we did see the return of false nine, except the player who was playing the false nine was kind of different. We had Harvey Elliott playing a false nine, kind of dropping in, making a box midfield with Curtis Jones, Endo, and Szoboszlai. We saw inverted and overlaps runs by Tsimikas and Bradley, which was very interesting to see in the sense that the energy they bring at the fullback position, I think that's going to be pivotal for this season going in. It's good to have energetic fullbacks in the terms of Arne Slot's philosophy, so that's going to be something that we're going to utilize pretty well, whether it's with those fullbacks or we get a new fullback. It's just bringing more excitement to me because I see that, not that to say that Trent is not as energetic as those two, but in the sense of they have more energy than so to say, like Robertson, Tsimikas, and Bradley. So it's making me a little excited because maybe when Trent comes back with the first team, we're going to see him in midfield. But for the meantime, that was just something that was tested. We saw Curtis Jones kind of have more of a freedom role, kind of dropping into the pockets and receiving the ball under pressure and kind of just distributing it out. We saw Endo playing like a typical 6, just as Curtis Jones cover. Didn't have the best of games, but it happens. I think that game just kind of screamed to us more that we do need a 6. But though we do have Tyler Morton and we do have Basetic, so maybe we watch the development of them over the course. They also played in the preseason game. They had a good game. Curtis Jones went down with injury within the 38th minute. We saw 17-year-old Trey Yanni from our academy, which we got from Leicester. He had a great game. He showed a lot of composure. He showed a lot of maturity on the ball. It showed something to be excited for coming into this season. I think he still needs to develop more in the sense of Premier League physicality, because if you look at his physique, he doesn't really look like he can handle that Premier League pressure. However, he's not the first player, and he surely won't be the last player who's told that his physique is not Premier League ready and then proves us wrong. So maybe it's one of those things, but it is something that we do need to ease him in rather than just forcing him and just because the Premier League is vigorous, it is physical. So we saw Szoboszlai have more, speaking of freedom, I said Curtis Jones, we saw Szoboszlai have that more creative 10 role than we're used to under Klopp, and we saw how it paid dividends because he scored. We saw him link up very well in the triangle with Bradley and Salah. Salah not really anything different. We saw Carvalho play on the left, Salah on the right, kind of playing with Harvey Elliott dropping into the midfield to form that box. We saw them kind of spread out wide and in so they could make those runs for the long balls, whether it was played by Kwanzaa, whether it was played by Nyani, whether it was played by Curtis Jones. But all in all, tactically, the way we were shaped was pretty interesting. And even though even though Arne Slot came out and said that that's not the way we're going to play permanently, just because they don't have 9s at their disposal, it was very interesting to see something new for Liverpool. And I'm excited to see what comes next under Arne Slot.
Yeah. I watched the game too because I wanted to be in the loop and see what you guys were doing, and especially because I respect Arne Slot as a coach a lot. He was a guy, if you've watched previous podcasts, you know that I really wanted him last summer, and I was kind of hoping he would be the next guy after Pochettino, but you guys got him first. The system, the style was really similar to like what we saw with Roberto De Zerbi at Brighton. I thought with the wingers super high and wide, with the false nine dropping in, almost like creating that box midfield. But the interesting thing was those like inverted runs from Tsimikas and Bradley. And Bradley was in some really interesting positions. I thought Bradley looked incredible, but whenever I've seen him, he always looks incredible. So definitely. Like I don't see Nunez fitting in that role when he's back, and I do imagine them switching to more of a like a 4-2-3-1 with a 9. Like he played a Feyenoord with Santiago Jimenez, and maybe Nunez can be developed into like the opening closet door on the side. Maybe Nunez can be developed into more of a complete striker. Obviously, he is chaos, and maybe Slot just tries to use that to his advantage. But yeah, you guys look really good, especially like Batista is a big challenge for your first game, but also Batista is going to press. They're going to go after you, and so they'll leave gaps open. So it was actually a really good first test for Arne Slot ball because it was against a competitive side who presses like a Premier League side, and so I thought it was a good game, and especially second half, like your young players, like under 21 players, like competing with a pretty strong Batiste side. I was really impressed, and definitely Ben Doak really impressed me. Trey and Yoni really impressed me. Connor Bradley always impresses me. Actually, I thought Kelleher, I didn't realize how like composed, cool he was on the ball. He looked really good. I thought Sepp Vandenberg did well. Kwanzaa is always incredible, and I think he will be very, very good for you guys for a long time. And I even like a Kwanzaa-Sepp partnership for the future, maybe, if Sepp sticks around. And so, yeah, I thought Bajcetic for being his first action in a while looked really solid, and yeah, I really liked that system that you guys played with the false 9 dropping in to create the box midfield with the high and wide wingers. Carvalho didn't really impress me that much, but also he's not traditionally a left winger necessarily, if that's correct. So, and that role, whenever you guys aren't playing a 9, I'm sure we'll see the system again. Because Nunez is your only like true 9 you have, and I could see Jota playing that false 9 role. That'll either be like Diaz or Cody Gakpo, or even Gakpo could play in that role, kind of dropping deep. But obviously, we both probably want to see him on the left, and we think that's where he's at his best. But yeah, I was really, really impressed with what I saw from you guys, from Arne Slot, and the tactics and whatnot. I don't know if you have anything else to add about the Liverpool game.
I mean, just the youngsters. I mean, not to go too in depth, but we did see a lot of the academy boys go out there, and most of them did impress. I don't really have too many notes on them. It was nice to see a pair of fresh legs, see what the youth is going to bring. I was, like you said, those last 20-15 minutes, they held their own against a first team Real Betis. So it showed a lot of signs of hopefulness. It showed a lot of signs for what's to come in the future, and maybe some people even made a case to stay for the upcoming season. Maybe some people are willing to make a case whether they go on loan, but all in all, I thought it was pretty exciting to see some former, or not former, I should say, some players who were sidelined with injuries, like Ben Doak was sidelined with injury, Cade Gordon was sidelined with injury, Harvey Blair was sidelined with injury. It was nice to see them kind of come back in and show what they have. Bajcetic, another one who was sidelined with injury. So it was nice to see the young lads come out there and ball, as you would say.
Yeah. Well, we can move on to the Chelsea game. Obviously, Chelsea played Wrexham. It was a 2-2 draw, which caused quite a bit of hysteria on social media, but Chelsea fans and being reactionary is not something that's new. And also, it's preseason. So we'll talk about the result and stuff and what I think of that in a little bit, but from what we saw, it was kind of exactly what I was thinking and what we talked about on previous podcasts. It was a 4-3-3 in system, I suppose, but then in possession, it would transition to more of like the 3-2-4-1/3-2-5-1. Reece James inverted into the midfield, which we were both predicting, I think, just with the way that Enzo Maresca played at Leicester. And he looked really good. Obviously, it's not a position he's unfamiliar with because he played in the midfield for Wigan when he was on loan there, and he was actually their club captain, and he was their player of the season when he played in the midfield for Wigan. So not something completely new to him. Obviously, you lose that ability of him bombing up and down the wing and his crossing ability, which is so good. But that was kind of offset or replaced by his set dead balls and set pieces. And I thought I imagine he's going to be our set piece taker going forward into the season, and his delivery was really, really good. We looked really good from set pieces, especially when Reece James was delivering the crosses. So, and he almost scored a free kick also. He was right outside. So, like, I really like the role, and I think if you're going to talk about his partner, which was Romeo Lavia, and I thought Lavia also looked really good for his first start for Chelsea, because he had only played, I want to say, half an hour for Chelsea last season. He was injured up until like the first few months of the season, came in and then had to step out the rest of the season. So he will feel like a new signing because he is a massive player. Obviously, you guys wanted him, Arsenal wanted him. He's from Manchester City's academy, and we ended up getting him. So he's going to be a big player for us this season, and I'd like to see him maybe further up the pitch, or Enzo further up the pitch when Enzo's healthy, because if you guys have also seen for other podcasts, I believe Enzo will be that deep midfielder that will partner Reece James, because Enzo Maresca prefers more of like a playmaker, not necessarily Regista, but a guy who can kind of like quarterback in possession and make those difficult passes. And so I imagine that will be Enzo Fernandez, because he's the most like metronomic player we have, and I think that's what he plays for Argentina, and when he plays for Argentina he looks like he's at his best. So excited to see him in that role. Obviously in our last podcast we talked about the Enzo Fernandez situation, so we don't need to get into that. But Enzo Maresca has kind of confirmed that all is well within the squad, and he apologized personally and made a statement, so we don't need to mention that. But if you do want to hear our thoughts, you're welcome to watch the last podcast, because it is an unfortunate situation. But yeah, what else do we see? Tyreek George started on the left, and he looked really good for being his first senior minutes for Chelsea, and looked really confident. I hope he stays with us this season. And I think the two of the players that really impressed me, one, Mark Yu, was unbelievable. And he really impressed me. Just his intensity, his pressing, his hold-up play, his strength for being 18 years old. Like, he will be a massive player in the future. And the fact that he was £5 million from Barcelona is an absolute snip. And he is not a Barcelona striker at all. Like, he is a Premier League striker. Strong, fast, physical, like, excellent hold-up play. Presses super hard, super well. Like, he was always running. So really excited to see him as preseason continues, and he's starting again today for Chelsea. We're actually only like 7 minutes out from kickoff for Chelsea. So really excited to see him continue, and I hope he's actually our backup striker this season, just from the opening 45 minutes that we saw of him. Especially watching 45 minutes of Armando Broja was like, we need Mark Yu in the squad, because no disrespect to Armando Broja, but he, I think the injury set him back a lot, and he just isn't necessarily, I just don't really know if he's Chelsea level, and I don't really know what Chelsea level is anymore, but he just doesn't look the part necessarily, and he didn't look great. He just doesn't really get involved necessarily, and maybe we'll see more of him today, maybe he'll play well today. So, we'll see. Obviously, Enzo Maresca trusted him enough to bring him on the preseason tour, even though he's been linked with move away. So, yeah. Nkunku played in the midfield. He played that kind of left 8/10 position. Chukwuemeka played on the other side, and both of them, interesting. I didn't see it a lot at Leicester, just watching their highlights back. Nkunku and Chukwuemeka would drop really deep, almost forming like a midfield of four. So at times, almost in the build-up, it was like a 3-4-3, with Nkunku and Chukwuemeka kind of dropping wide to receive passes, and that was an interesting tactical adaptation that we didn't really see for Leicester last season. So we'll see what happens there if that continues. It is the same midfield that we saw last time today, so I would imagine he sticks with that. Trying to think of Tosin Adarabioyo. He really impressed me as well. He looked really cool, calm, composed. Obviously, I wish him coming in wasn't at the expense of Trev. I love Trevoh Chalobah, and obviously he will be leaving Chelsea this summer. But that's. With that, maybe we can talk about that another time if that advances and whatnot. So, yeah, in terms of just the performance, the tactics, how we set up and everything, and I was really pleased. Obviously, 2-2 draw is disappointing, and both of Wrexham's goals were in the second half. But the opening 45 minutes for Chelsea, despite being sloppy in play a few times, and that's going to happen naturally. It's our first preseason game. Wrexham have already played a game, and they've been in America for a few more days than us. And also Phil Parkinson is going on to his 4th season there, so they know exactly the way they want to play. Also, Wrexham are a team that always have 11 men behind the ball. They play like Brexit-style 5-3-2 football, like they're not the best opponent, not like the most ideal opponent that you would choose to play a build-up from the back, like work through a team opponent. Like generally, if you come up against a low-block team like that, that's probably not the type of football that you want to play, but obviously that's how Maresca wants to play. He wants to implement a style, so you have to. And there were really bright moments. I think after Wrexham scored their second goal, the last 15 minutes, Chelsea looked really good. And then kind of the last 20 or so minutes of the first half, Chelsea started to get a lot of momentum and look really good. So tactically, style-wise, I love the system. I'm a bit of a football nerd, so I like the dominant possession style. Obviously, we can't give up the ball as much as we did, but that is just a tactical thing that we'll have to learn. Chelsea were pretty sloppy at times, especially in the second half. Both of Wrexham's goals coming from sloppy play. But yeah, I was happy. I was pleased with what we saw from the squad, and I really trust Enzo Maresca. And also just having a bald Italian dugout is just vibes, and I love it. And it just feels so Chelsea. Because obviously when you talk about Chelsea and Italian coaches like Vialli in the 90s, you have Ranieri, you have Di Matteo, who we won the Champions League with, you have Ancelotti, you have Sarri, you have Conte, and now, and I might have missed one or two. There's a lot, and there's a history there, so it feels very Chelsea. I do think he will be able to build a relationship with these fans. Obviously, you need results, and you need to win trophies to do that, but I do really hope he gets time, because I really like his style of football. I like his personality. I think he's very Chelsea, just in the way that he... And I like his training methods from what we've seen, from what we've heard from Kieran Dewsbury Hall, about Enzo Maresca. There's just a lot of good stuff. So, I'm really excited for this era and to see a little bit more from us in preseason. We obviously have a few more games remaining, so we'll see how we continue to grow in those games and hopefully get results. But even if not, as long as we see the tactical style being implemented, as long as we see the fitness levels going up, and hopefully no injuries, then I will be happy. Of course, I want wins, but it is preseason, so that's not necessarily what I'm begging for. And I know, we are Chelsea. This isn't our full squad, full strength squad. Caicedo isn't in the squad, Enzo isn't in the squad. We are missing a few key players, so there will be an adjustment period and stuff, and just because this tactical style is so different. But yeah, all in all, really pleased with what I saw. Of course, I'm not about to drop it. It's preseason. I'm not going to be super bent out of shape about it. So, yeah, feeling good.
I think with the course of time, both teams are going to get more, not sloppy in terms of possession, because it is a new system. I feel like the Wrexham game was, as you were saying, it was a good test for you guys. For me, personally, I also watched the game. A few standouts for me was, for starters, Reece James. I told you that. I mean, everyone kind of expected with the way Maresca plays, his philosophy, we expected a fullback to invert, and it seemed most likely to be, well, when you get Cucurella back, I'm sure Cucurella will invert because that's where he's comfortable with as well. But I was impressed with the way Reece James inverted in the pairing with Lavia. I think his positioning was excellent. Maybe that could, in the future, help benefit in terms of staying healthy rather than the vigorous right back role that he's used to. I would get strains on his hamstrings and all that. So it'd be nice to see how he fares with that in the Premier League. I thought Marc Guéhi, like you said, I thought he was excellent off the ball. I thought he linked well with his teammates. I thought he was physical, especially for a Spanish player. I thought he was pretty physical. It showed that he could even though it's Wrexham's not in the Premier League, I thought he showed the physicality promise to match the Premier League's intensity and physicality.
And we filmed last night, and I was saying, if Marc Guéhi can go strength to strength with a center back in League One with the last name of Boyle, then you have strength for English football. No, we can continue. Sorry.
But yeah, I thought he was good linking up. It kind of reminds me of like how Nicholas Jackson was in his first season coming in. Like he showed that promise. I thought Tyreek George was excellent playing at left wing. I thought his cut-ins were great. I thought he had great ball rolls, great step overs. He showed a real purpose with his drive. And I feel like we're going to see that a lot from a lot of your wingers, but I was just more specifically impressed with Tyreek George. And lastly, Wesley Fofana, I thought, because he's been out with injury, we haven't really seen what he's been capable of. I thought in possession, he was very good on the ball. I thought defensively, his positioning was also sound. There was, for the second goal, Achempong kind of lost the ball, where there was miscommunication between him and Leslie Uchoku, and his positioning has kind of come into question. But at the same time, it's critical judgment for me, or it's harsh judgment from me, because it's kind of one of those things where you have to split second quick reaction. But all in all, I thought he played well. Leslie Uchoku, I just mentioned him. I might as well just go in. I don't think he's a horrible player. I just think he had a bad game. I don't think he's Premier League ready, but that's just me. I think a loan out to a Premier League side
at least
that development will help him.
Yeah, at least Chelsea ready. I would agree. Yeah, I think he needs Premier League experience, but yeah, maybe not ready to step up at Chelsea just this moment. Yeah.
He did take his goal nicely though on his left foot. But yeah, there is promise there. That's not to bash him and say that he's not Premier League quality at all. I just think, just like you said, I don't think he's Chelsea ready. I just think he needs to get a bit more Premier League minutes under his belt and get used to Premier League football, and then come back and see how it goes. But yeah, those were the notes I took away from your guys' game. I thought it was very exciting to see the new age of Chelsea and how Maresca fares, and I think it matches very well with the players you guys currently have.
Yeah, I agree. I think Maresca's style really fits the group we have, and reportedly players agree. Like, the players prefer the way Enzo Maresca wants to play football over Pochettino, and obviously a lot of games last season were like really chaotic, and like obviously 4-4 against Manchester City, 4-3 against Manchester United. Like, we conceded the most goals we have since before the Premier League era. So I think 1991 was the last time we conceded this many goals. But we scored a lot too, so offensively there's promise. Obviously, scoring goals has been a struggle in the past. Defense has been a strength. This past season, defense was an incredible weakness, and scoring goals came relatively easily. So have to hope that continues. I don't imagine we'll score maybe as many as last season. I hope so. But I also think that's just because the style will be different, and Maresca's focus is on controlling the game and just suffocating your opponent, like squeezing them and like pressing incredibly hard, not letting them have but also when you have the ball, just being cool in possession, retaining it, and slowly working your way, building through the opposition defense. So I'm excited to see that, and I'm excited to see more of a comfortable approach. And even though like the 4-3 against Manchester United is like one of my favorite games in recent years. Like the 4-4 against Manchester City is one of my favorite games in recent years. Preferably the less games we have like that, the better going for it, because they are very difficult to watch as a fan, because, and obviously United and City are both good clubs, and so going neck and neck with them is a good thing, but preferably, the less thrillers, the better, and the more, dominance and control we can have is ideal. So, and just lastly, speaking about player performance, because I only mentioned a few players, I thought Gusto looked good inverting into the midfield. I thought he looked comfortable. He was a bit more active than James, I would say. He was kind of all over the midfield, receiving passes, and it is an adjustment for him, obviously, because he is at his best when he's bombing up and down the pitch, but also he's so young. It's like, you could probably say the same for Rico Lewis at Manchester City. Like, maybe he's at his best when he's bombing up and down. You could probably say the same for Kyle Walker, but both have inverted and looked really good doing it, and I think with Malo Gusto being so young, he can really be developed and transition into like an excellent inverted fullback. Ben Chilwell played more of a defensive role. He played what Colwell played in the first half, and that's kind of what I was expecting for him. Obviously, he's another player who's at his best when he's bombing up and down. Chilwell's more of a unique fullback because he likes to make those inverted runs. So, we'll see what happens with Ben Chilwell. He loves Chelsea. He's obviously our vice captain at the moment. So I don't want him to leave or anything. There's no real rumors that he's going to leave. They're having rumors that that if an offer comes in, like, we'd be open to selling. But yeah, it'll be interesting, and honestly, maybe a more defensive role where he's just focused on retaining the ball and kind of just more of a passive role. Could be better for him in his fitness, because obviously him and Reece James really struggle to stay fit. But yeah, all in all, happy with what we saw and really excited for this upcoming season. But lastly, so we don't go too long, maybe we just touch on brief transfer rumors for just a couple minutes, and then we can call it. But maybe start with you. Is there any movement really with Liverpool right now in the transfer market?
Before we get into that, look at this predicted. I'm not sure if you can see it, but football.
The same thing. Yeah. Oh, Romeo Lavia, right wing back. Okay.
Is how you guys are performing against Celtic today, apparently, according to
yeah, they put us in a 3-4-3 last game, and I just it's just so interesting. Obviously, that is not how we play. It's a 4-3-3. So, but anyways,
it caught my. I got the notification. It caught my eye because it said Mataway playing center mid, and I was like, okay. But yeah, in terms of Liverpool, I'll just go based off of the friendly game. I've said this to you multiple times. I'm sure you can ask any Liverpool fan, and they'll say the exact same thing. I think it's critical that we invest in a 6 if we're going into the market this season. Arne Slot has already come out and said that they'll be surprised if they don't have newcomers and new signings coming in. So that's a good sign, at least from the Arne Slot's camps, showing that the importance of getting that depth that Liverpool needs in certain positions. Because to challenge with the likes of City and Arsenal, one thing that you're going to need now more than anything is depth. We don't question Liverpool's quality whatsoever in terms of first team. Where it really gets tricky is injuries and the depth that they have. So I think getting a better 6 than Endo, not to say Endo is a horrible 6 by any means, but just to get a more challenging, competent 6 to kind of bounce off the strengths of, if we're going to see more of that Curtis Jones, or it can even be a McAllister, it can even be a Gravenberch, if we're going to see more of that role of a player kind of dropping in to receive the ball deep, receiving under pressure, making those turns and then playing into spaces, whether it's Szoboszlai in space or our left wing into space, we're going to need somebody to cover for them in the sense of defensive and holding in that pocket, giving the short passes to distribute off to the more creative player, which on paper sounds like Endo can do, but Endo is getting up there in age, of course, and then based off of what I saw yesterday with the preseason game, like I said, maybe it was just a rough game. However, it also showed me that at times he could be sloppy and maybe not as reliable as I once thought he could be with this new system. Under Klopp's system, we saw how reliable he could be and proved a lot of people wrong. Under this system, again, it could be a little overreactionary given the fact that it is a friendly, but it did show that maybe under this system it might be too possession-based for him, in the sense of he might be soaking up too much pressure if he is to do that double pivot with any other player, whether they're creative or not.
Chelsea are playing. We almost scored in the opening 18 seconds. Oh, you can continue. So sorry.
But yeah, in terms of the 6, like I mentioned, we do have to observe Basetic and Tyler Morton. Like I said earlier, Tyler Morton just came off an incredible season with Hull City and was pretty involved. And based on the things that Arne Slot came out and said that he's looking for in that kind of double pivot, or what we need in that double pivot, it kind of describes Tyler Morton's game perfectly. He may be not as strong as we would hope, say like maybe a Fabinho defensively or aerially, but he does have very good composure on the ball. He's very good at holding it, very good long ball on him, very not afraid to stick a foot into challenges, go in, have a challenge, and his physicality has improved massively in the championship, as he also had a loan with Blackburn, which is something that we like to see from the youth academy players. But either way, I think a 6 is something that we should invest in. I would like to see how Basetic and Tyler Morton develop in terms of that physicality at the end of the day, because it's not the abilities they have. They've showcased the abilities that they have in terms of being able to play the 6. It's more just the physicality and how they're going to handle that pressure. Center back was something that a lot of Liverpool fans were calling for. We recently just lost out. Well, I can't say lost out. Well, we recently were interested in Lenny Euro and then pulled out Lenny Euro. Now he's been acquired by Manchester United, and I think that was the right choice by Liverpool not getting Lenny Euro, especially on 50 million and 150k on wages, especially for a fourth string. Especially now that we've seen how Sepp Vandenberg fares within the Liverpool system under Arne Slot. I think he was incredible last night. Not too flashy, not too crazy. It was kind of just did his role perfectly. Kind of just did the bounce pass off to Kwanzaa. He showed ability to make passes that can break the lines, but also just hold his ground and not play a disciplined kind of central role at center back. So I thought he really impressed me. I think that I think we should let him challenge at left center back, as currently Van Dijk is unchallenged at left center back. Not to say that he will replace Van Dijk by any means, but obviously with Van Dijk up there in age, it is something that we need to look at, and it would save us a lot in the future or in funds. And we know Liverpool loves nothing more than to save money, so that works in that sense. And then also a right wing. We have a lot of academy products at right wing. We have Harvey Blair, we have Ben Doak, we have Kate Gordon. However, none of them really fare to the likes of Mohamed Salah quite yet. I feel like a lot of them could develop on loan. It is rumored to say that Ben Doak is going to have a conversation with Arne Slot in his camp after preseason to discuss where he's at, whether he wants to be loaned or get first team minutes, or maybe even potentially a sale. But it is crucial that we find something that is going to help us in the long run when Salah is on the way out, as he's currently on his last year of his contract, as well as Trent and Van Dijk. The only one that I can say for certain that I know will extend his contract is Trent, because Trent is just Liverpool through and through. Van Dijk obviously has came out and said that he loves Liverpool, but he also is at an age where he needs to be thinking about his future, his family, and all that kind of stuff. Salah, same thing. He's also at an age where I'm sure that these guys would love to challenge and say it at Liverpool, but it's more of a thing of you got to think about at this certain age, you got to think of your longevity, you got to think about your family and all this kind of stuff. So we need to, as a Liverpool club, we can't get too sentimental with that. We need to prepare for when these things happen. And at the end of the day, I think we could rely on Ben Doak. We could rely on these youth academy products. Out of all the youth academy products that I've mentioned, I think Ben Doak is the most first team quality. However, it wouldn't surprise me to see if we go in the market and get a right wing. But for me, those are just the positions that I could see Arne Slot going in and diving into the transfer market for.
Yeah, I do agree. I think after watching watching Liverpool last night, you guys definitely need the 6, because Endo just looked off it. He looked sloppy in possession, and like he struggled to kind of keep up with the press. But yeah, moving on to Chelsea. Chelsea, as of today, got the Fabrizio Romano "Here we go" for goalkeeper Philip Jorgensen. So that means that Petrovic is probably on his way out, unfortunately. And I know a lot of Chelsea fans have opinions about that, and it is really unfortunate because Petrovic, he was solid when he came in. I won't act like he was like the best goalkeeper in the world, but you would have to think that he would be a good second option. But in terms of just the way that Enzo Maresca wants to play, Sanchez is definitely more suited for that, and definitely Philippe Jorgensen is more suited for that. And if you don't really know the profile of Philippe Jorgensen, I of course had to study up on it a bit, because I'm not going to act like I was super familiar with this game. I did know the player, but I didn't necessarily know a lot about him. He is very comfortable with the ball at his feet. He's comfortable coming out of the goal, sweeping. Good in short distribution, had really good short distribution stats. He had the most saves in the Liga. Chelsea just... we've had about 4 big chances. We are looking really good. Sorry. We're only 5 minutes in, and Chelsea looked really good. Anyways, he's had the most saves in the Liga. If you look at like his stats on FBref, he didn't necessarily doesn't stun you. I wouldn't say, but also when you factor in that he did make the most saves in the Liga, that probably means he faced a lot of shots, and defensively, Villarreal probably weren't the best club. So, it's reported that it's £20 million with no add-ons, which is, I think, good value for a player like him. And we'll see how he develops. We'll see how he challenges Robert Sanchez this season. He maybe is a little bit more comfortable with the ball at his feet, which Maresca might prefer. But seems like a big talent. And a Danish too. Obviously been some great Danish goalkeepers in the Premier League, as one of them is starting in goal for Celtic at the moment, Kasper Schmeichel, but his father, Peter Schmeichel, more so. So, yeah. That's the only super advanced Chelsea rumor. We did just complete Aaron Anselmino today as well, who's a young Boca Juniors defender. He'll be loaned back to Boca Juniors until at least January, and then he will go to Strasbourg, presumably on loan for a season and a half or half a season or something. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, those are the two big rumors. It has been reported that we are looking at 1 to 2 attackers, probably a right-footed winger and a striker are the two players that we're looking at. But after watching Tyreek George and after watching Mark Q last night, I would be more than happy just seeing those guys compete for those spots. George on the left and Guy just as a backup striker. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how Chelsea move. I'm sure we wouldn't be afraid to spend more money, as we never are. Outgoings are definitely interesting for the rest of the window. We've already mentioned Broya. There are Chilwell rumors, but I don't really see that happening. So yeah, we'll kind of see what happens. Celtic almost scored. It is a it's an exciting time for Chelsea, just with the players coming in, the players that we have now. I do think it'll be a good season ahead for Chelsea. But I also tend to be more optimistic than other Chelsea fans. And so, yeah.
Exciting times for both Liverpool and Chelsea, with new managers, new philosophies, new transfers in and out, and new positional awareness and positional plays from different players. We're going to see a lot of different styles of play, in a sense, from a lot of different players. For you, it could be Reece James and Nkunku. For us, it could be Chimikas, Trent, and pretty much any winger we have. I mean, and even our midfield. I think something that could very well happen is the fact that we just scrap the 6 all in all, at least the defensive side, because Klopp has come, or I keep saying Klopp, Arne Slot has come out and said what he requires from 6, and the way he talks about it is almost as if he's describing the profile of Curtis Jones, and we all know by any means Curtis Jones he has shown his ability to be a good ball winner, but in the sense of really defensively being a ball winner, like say maybe a Casemiro, not on the same level, but at this time of football, you don't really need those. There's plenty of teams that don't really have the gladiator, as you would say, and they perform just fine. So it's a risk I could see to being taken for Chelsea with the inverting of Reece James, whether he's paired with either a Romeo Lavia, which I see is going to be happening more often, or even could potentially be an Enzo. I see a lot of exciting things for Liverpool and Chelsea coming through for the future. If you liked this podcast, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you check out the IG link in the description. We have made it to social media platforms. We post clips, edits, news, everything, even analysis. We are going to be a lot more involved. We're going to be a lot more hands-on. So please do that if you could. That'd be amazing. And if you enjoyed the podcast, like I said, please like and subscribe, and we will sign out.